Hello, PHOTOPILLERS, Rafael, Bar here, and welcome to another masterclass. Today, we're going to learn how to photograph the moon with Jennifer Khordi. Yeah, Jennifer, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome. I was looking forward to this masterclass with you because you're a really expert photographing the moon with buildings, landscapes, and I'm really looking forward to hear what you have to teach us. And I think there are a lot of people out there watching us now live, waiting for you to share your wisdom on moon photography. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
To begin with, walk us through the program today. What are you going to teach us?
Okay, first of all, I'm going to mainly I'll start talking about how I've been inspired to do my moon photography in the first place. And then I'm going to walk you through a bunch of my sample shots that I've taken over the years. And then I'm going to explain the gear I use. And then I'm going to explain how to actually shoot the moon. I'm also going to explain how I use PhotoPills to actually get probably the most difficult shot I've ever done. So without PhotoPills, I could not have pulled it off. So I'm extremely grateful to be able to use PhotoPills as a tool to get the shot.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then I'm going to be showing you my my camera setup, which is right here. So
awesome. Can't wait. Well, Jennifer, you want to start? I know that you have a presentation ready for action.
I do. Okay.
Maybe we can start with, who is Jennifer Khordi for people that don't know you. And you want to share your screen? Okay, perfect. If you maximize, your presentation, it'll be cool. Here we are.
Okay, great.
Let me see. I think you have it now. Yes. Perfecto.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I see your slides and I see you. Everybody's seeing you too. So
Perfect.
All yours.
Okay, so my name is Jennifer Khordi. I've been a professional cityscape and landscape photographer for about the last 6 years. I mostly shoot cityscapes and I also do landscape. My favorite, of course, is the moon. I also shoot Milky Way. I do a lot of night shooting. But again, my absolute favorite is shooting the moon. I absolutely love it. Every month I'm trying to plan my next shot. So today, again, I'm going to walk you through, my inspiration, a bunch of sample images, how I plan, how I shoot and all that. So anyways, so let me just walk through this. Okay, so the main thing with PhotoPills is imagine, plan, and shoot. The thing you have to know about when you're want to shoot the moon is you have to have an idea in your mind of what you want to portray. You have to have a sense of imagination because I think it's so important for you to realize that, to get this idea in your mind of what you want to portray in a shot. And then the other main component of it is planning. You have to be able to plan the shot to know if you could land the moon over your subject or not. And that's so important. And then the other thing is that once you've imagined your shot and got the composition, once you've planned it in PhotoPills and know it's going to happen, you have to execute the shot. So it's really imagine, plan, and then executing. Now, the executing part is also kind of difficult because the moon is very weather dependent. I know last night I had a small group. We were out shooting a lighthouse and the sky completely cleared up except right above the lighthouse. So the moon kind of peeked out, but it was just like this tiny little sliver behind the lighthouse. So you know what? You can't do anything about the weather. But once you get the imagination part right, once you get the planning part right, you go to execute, you've done everything you can, and then it's kind of up to God and Mother Nature whether or not you're going to get the shot or not. So, plan and pray. I think that's
we say it all the time because the moon is so tricky to capture. Even if you plan the shot and then you need to get the clouds working on your side, and then you get the right spot, and then you need to nail the exposure, the focusing, and everything. And that's why it's so important, the class you're gonna give today. So
thank you. Yeah, so it's funny that last night we watched the clouds almost completely dissipate, but it left this teeny tiny little layer of cloud right above the lighthouse. So that was kind of funny. Okay, so imagine. So I have a really very vivid imagination. I kind of grew up reading and watching a lot of movies and a lot of drama movies, destruction movies, horror movies. So I have this really vivid sense of imagination. All of my moonshots are inspired by the movie Melancholia. And
really?
Actually, this is the whole reason why I started shooting the moon over New York City to begin with. Is that I felt so inspired by this movie that I wanted to show a moon coming up over New York City almost to destroy it. Like the rogue planet in the movie eventually destroyed the Earth. I wanted to show the moon rising up over New York, almost destroying it. So this is actually a scene in the movie. One of the last scenes of the movie was this rogue planet actually about to take over the Earth. So this is when our stars of the movie are huddled under this makeshift little teepee, and they're just getting ready to, die in a sea of fire. So, I've actually kind of achieved this in one of my first moonshots that went viral about 4 years ago. People actually thought that there was this big blood moon overtaking New York City. So I think it's kind of cool that I've actually almost scared people in some of my imagery, thinking, oh my gosh, this is gigantic moon that's going to destroy New York City and then eventually destroy the Earth. So
yeah, I totally believe that, because these moonshots where you see that the moon so big compared to your subject, in this case New York, people can think that there's Photoshop. It's like it's impossible. But yeah, it is possible. You're far away enough from your subject, so yeah, it creates like a kind of surreal image that's hard to believe.
Yeah, so I like to portray a sense of drama in my moonshots, and the way I portray the drama is that I use lens compression and distance to get that. And it's kind of hard to plot some of these large moons, to plot and plan them, because the lineups are kind of tricky. You have to get really far away from your subject in order to show a big moon. Because the way I explain this to people is that if you want to show a sense of drama, you have to make sure that you put a lot of distance between yourself and the subject. And then you use a long lens, and then you get lens compression. So you get that lens compression of that moon in the distance, and you get to show this big moon coming up over New York City. And the only thing with that is that, a lot of these lineups only happen a couple of days a year. So when you're waiting months and months to get this big moonshot and then clouds block it or whatever, it's kind of discouraging. But if you keep at it, you keep trying, it's really, really a big reward at the end of it. So again, like for me, the bigger the moon, the better. And I love when people say, no, that's not possible. It has to be Photoshop. How can that moon be as big as the building? Well, yeah, it can be, because you actually can, if you're 25 miles away from New York and you're looking at a New York skyline from 25 miles away, that skyline is very, very small in your field of view. It's so tiny. But the moon, when it comes up with the horizon, it's always the same size. So if you put a lot of distance between yourself and the subject, you can actually make your subject appear very, very small in the shot. But when that moon comes up over the horizon, it's the size of it is dramatically increased. And that's what I tell people all the time, is that you have to get a sense of distance between yourself and the subject. The further you are away from your subject, the smaller the subject is, but the moon is always the same. So you're actually portraying this sense of, oh my gosh, there's this gigantic moon about to overtake New York. Well, not really, because if you take a drive and you drive to the city, you can watch the same moon, and it's like this teeny tiny little thing in the sky. So it's just this, it's kind of like a play on your senses kind of a thing. So that's what I like. So then I say drama, distance, lens compression, and imagination. So I get the drama by the distance between me and the city, lens compression, and then my own crazy imagination. If you see the shot that I'm showing here in the slide, I actually took this 4 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of people shooting the moon over New York at the time, and I submitted this to a news agency, and the shot went viral in the morning. And there were these religious groups that actually thought that this was a blood moon prophesied in the Bible. So they actually thought that this was the second coming of Jesus. So it was actually very interesting to hear people get crazy about the shot. And this is only a trick of distance and lens compression, and that was it. Anybody standing next to the city when they were looking at the same moon when I took this 4 years ago would have seen this teeny tiny little thing in the sky, and that's all it really was.
Yeah, perspective.
Huh?
Perspective is everything, point of view and the image you're building changes a lot.
Okay, so lens compression, in which the background appears to be closer to a subject and larger in comparison than the subject actually is. This is achieved with a telephoto lens and distance, as of what I was saying before. Okay, so the biggest thing you have to understand is you have to understand your composition and figure out what you want to shoot. And I didn't type this, but once you understand your composition and figure out what you want to shoot, then you have to make sure that you can plan and execute the shot out, as I was saying before. So now that I've talked to you about kind of my trick on how I get some of my larger moon shots, I'm going to run through, a sample of some of my favorite moon images I've taken over the years. And you guys can stop at any time if you have a question. You can send it to Raphael, and then I can answer it.
Yeah, that's right, guys. If you wanna, leave a comment in the chat, we have Sandra Vallaure there, and she will be sending the questions to us so we can help you answer your questions. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Yeah, I'll answer whatever. And I have some crazy stories behind some of these. I kind of wonder how I got it to begin with. So this is actually one of my favorite moon shots I've ever taken, because this is one of the rare mornings where there was almost no distortion in the moon. So I actually was able to achieve a lot of moon clarity that I normally don't get that close to the horizon. It was an extremely cold morning. I was standing on a sheet of ice when I took this. I actually shot this between two large boats. And these boats were not there when I looked on my map, and they were not there when I scouted the location. So I don't know how I pulled this off, but I did. But it was one of those really, really clear mornings where I had a tremendous amount of detail on the moon that I normally don't get. So I was able to get this very large looking moon with a lot of clarity above the Statue of Liberty. So
it's amazing.
Thank you. Okay. This one was taken earlier this year, and I had a small group. I think I had like 2 or 3 people, and it was just one of those really, really clear days where there was absolutely no clouds, and I wanted to plot the moon over the antenna of the Empire State Building. The crazy thing was, as the moon was rising, all of these birds came out. It was like they were being called by the moon or something. It was like the scene out of a horror movie. There were hundreds of birds everywhere, and they wouldn't stop flying around the Empire State Building when I was taking my shots. So this kind of reminds me of a horror movie, to be honest with you. Even though birds are nice, it was just crazy the way they were kind of swarming around the Empire State Building.
Totally.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. So What's that?
Huh?
What's this?
Okay. This is actually an alignment that I got. I was 28 miles away from the Empire State Building, and actually, if you use the PhotoPills app, it actually wouldn't even tell you that alignment occurred. I knew that from 28 miles away, I knew that I would get the moon actually as it was rising up over the horizon. So it wasn't even completely risen yet when I actually got the shot. So what I did was I used the app, and I actually enabled the plot line to be directly over the Empire State Building, exactly at rise. And I kind of knew that exactly at rise, you would actually see the moon coming up over the horizon, and it would cross the Empire State Building immediately. It was just completely insane to see it. And I think I took this like 3 a.m. I think I was the only one there. I think I had one other person, but it was a sight to see. A lot of people have accused me of photoshopping this shot, and I have to say I've never done that. This is just a very rare alignment. I think it occurs maybe once a year from this location to get the lineup over behind the Empire State Building. So, and if you see here, the moon actually completely overtook the Chrysler Building. So if anybody's scared of a blood moon, this is it, I guess.
It's beautiful. I suppose the moon was moving so fast, in the frame. I mean, it's like with such a long shooting distance, the moon is like, wow, maybe in 1 minute, and it's out of the frame, right?
Yeah, it was 1 or 2 minutes and then it was out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually, another friend of mine, I'm not sure if she's watching right now, but when I saw her last time, I actually explained to her I got the shot, and she's another outstanding moon shooter. And I told her that if you put this in the calculator, is actually a negative rise, meaning that this is from a distance, a height of like 550 feet. So, you know, if you're putting in the calculator, if you want to calculate it, you have to put like a negative amount, because the moon is actually not even cleared the horizon and it's already past the building. So if you want to plot a shot like this, I recommend just taking it day by day and see where the moon line is, and make sure that the moon line is actually right over the subject, and you'll get the shot if you're planning a shot from this distance. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. This is, again, one of those really, really rare days where there was no wind and absolutely there was no distortion in the atmosphere whatsoever, and the moon was very, very clear for a change. So I was very, very excited to get the shot, because I also was able to get the moon and the Statue of Liberty in very sharp focus. We have a tremendous problem in New York City with wind. And unfortunately, a lot of my shots, I come home and there's still a little bit of shake in them, and I have to go in and fix them. But in this case, we had zero wind. It was completely clear. It wasn't even that cold out. So it was perfect conditions. I just wanted to say to anybody watching that it's hard to get perfect conditions, especially around New York City. We've got that low-lying cloud layer that's always there. We've got wind. All I'm saying is be persistent. Go out every month and try to get it. And you'll even look at your shots over the whole year and say, wow, I have at least maybe 8 or 10 that are really good. So this is a perfect example. To get the shot, I might have gone out 15 times earlier than that and gotten nothing. You really have to keep going out, and you really have to keep trying.
Nice, totally.
Thank you. So this is the my blood moon shot that I took in 2016. This is the first time I've ever gotten a moon this big. And the plot line was only 4 minutes from rise to when it crossed the building. I think this one was 2 minutes after rise. At 4 minutes, the moon was actually gone. This is another case where we had absolutely zero distortion in the atmosphere. There was no clouds, and I was able to get a tremendous amount of detail in the moon that close to the horizon. And what happened was I sent this to the news agencies. The next day, the shot went viral, and that's when it was in the papers. And then it was this image is all over the internet. I mean, if you look on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos on it. There was a bunch of people who were trying to say it was Photoshop, and I think the Weather Channel got involved, and I actually showed how I plotted it, and they posted it. So a lot of people didn't believe that this image was real. Again, 4 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people shooting these large moonshots over New York City. Not like now, where you go and there's like 30 other people there. 4 years ago, there was hardly anybody. But I took a picture of the back of my camera, so if anybody ever wants to say to me that this picture isn't real, I can just show them, and I can actually show them the plot and tell them how I got it.
It looks real to me. It looks really real.
Yeah, well, of course, I mean, you're the PhotoPills guy, so of course you would think, yeah, I know it's real, because I can, if you go back to 2016 and the day I shot it, you can easily see that the plot line there. So all I can say is this also, that, there's a lot of people who might think it's okay just to drop a moon in. Well, you know what? If you're going to take a moon and just plop it over your subject, then you know what? You better be able to, and if you say it's real, you better be able to prove that your shot is real.
Yeah.
Because, if you're going to drop a moon over a subject, you better make sure that it aligned from there. Because if it didn't, someone might challenge you. Someone might challenge you with PhotoPills and say, you know what? That moon did not align over your subject on that day from where you said it, you shot it. So I don't think there's anything good about dropping a moon, to be honest with you. If you say you did it, then that's fine. It's Photoshop, it's a creation. But if you drop a moon in and you say it's real, then you better be prepared to be challenged on it.
Actually, one of the fun parts of photography and with these moonshots is actually to live the moment, to capture the photo you've planned and you imagined, and just being out there waiting for the moon to appear in the scene. It's crazy. It's so much fun.
It is. And you want to know something? There's an enormous sense of satisfaction from eventually landing the shot.
Yeah.
I have to say, when I was taking the shot, I was so nervous. It was just me and my friend Peter. We were the only ones there at the time, and I was so nervous. I couldn't believe I was capturing this. There's an absolute sense of excitement that you get from landing a difficult shot like this and actually executing it, knowing that you planned it and you executed it properly. There's nothing more satisfying to me about that. So anybody who's always dropping moons in, I mean, what's satisfying about sitting there in Photoshop and just moving an object over? Like, you really didn't do the work. So I want anybody who's doing that to try to do it this way, and you'll see how much fun it is.
Yes, definitely. Actually, we have a question from Jochen Keller about, are these images one shot or separate exposures of the moon? So it's like all your shots are one single exposure, right? Yes.
They're always a single exposure. I absolutely would not blend anything in them. And you know what, though? The thing with New York City is New York City is bright, so it's very easy to get it in one shot. Yeah. I have to say, if you're photographing something really dim that's not lit at night, I recommend only shooting it in blue hour.
Yeah,
it's very, very hard to get a decent moonshot over a subject when it's dark, because if the subject is dark and the moon is bright, it's very hard to get it in the same exposure. And unfortunately, most of the people who do blend them, the shot really looks fake.
Yeah.
So do your PhotoPills and try to plan it, and try to plan that moonrise around blue hour, meaning that around sunrise, around sunset, that 1 hour before that 1 hour around sunrise and sunset where you have the blue hour is actually the best time to get these moonshots, to be honest, if you're photographing a dark subject.
Definitely.
Okay. This is the moon rising behind the Barnegat Lighthouse. And if you want to see something about trying, this is the 4th night in a row that I had driven all the way down to Long Beach Island from where I live. It was about over an hour drive trying to land the shot. And I finally got a moon behind the lighthouse, but half of it was in clouds. So the funny thing is, every time I go down there to get the shot, I get blocked by clouds. This is the only time I've ever gotten one behind the lighthouse. You really, really have to be persistent when you're trying to get a shot like this, especially something at the ocean. We almost always get that low-lying cloud like I did last night. So there's another example of being persistent. If you go enough, you'll eventually get the shot. This one I actually got a couple of nights ago. I had a large group with me, and it was amazing. Like, I had a large group and it wasn't cloudy.
Lucky you. I know that you do so many workshops. Actually, every month you do workshops with people, take people out to shoot the moon.
Yeah.
And it seems that you're getting lucky lately.
I think so. This week I did.
So you guys, you want to photograph the moon without clouds, go with Jennifer.
No. That's Raphael. That's way too much pressure. That's way too much pressure. But, I couldn't believe I had a large group with me, and the conditions when I got the shot were perfect. This is an example of shooting a subject that's not lit at night. This lighthouse is so dim that it's almost impossible to shoot this at night. Especially last night, I took a small group with me who could not come a couple of nights ago. That lighthouse was so dark. So in this instance, I really would wait to get this kind of shot during blue hour. So the moon was actually rising 15 minutes before sunset. And actually, it crossed about 10 minutes after rise, and it was perfect. It had crossed this lighthouse almost at sunset. And we were able to get a really nice color. But try not to attempt these moonshots of dark subjects at night, because you guaranteed it's going to be very, very hard to get a good shot. And you're almost always going to have to shoot at a very high ISO, and it's going to be very hard to get any detail in your subject if it's not blue hour. Okay, this is another shot that I got a couple nights ago. Perfect conditions, absolutely no clouds. This is the first time I've tried to land a shot on the edge like this. To be honest with you, the moon was just a little bit too bright. So I'm going to go back later on this month to do the same shot again. I'm going to announce a workshop. But in this case, I think if the moon had risen up even 15 to 20 minutes earlier, I would have had a better shot than I got.
That looks beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a tough one. This is definitely the kind of shot that you need PhotoPills for, because you need that elevation of the ledge. So if you don't have the elevation of the ledge, then it's going to be very, very hard to land that moon straight on the ledge. And I really wanted it on the ledge so that the people were standing in front of it like this. So definitely in this case, you're going to need your PhotoPills for that. This is another example. This is moon set over the Statue of Liberty, and this is another case where crazy distortion that day. I have never seen the moon look like this before. It looked like a smashed pizza pie. But the crazy thing about this was it actually made the moon look a lot larger than it was. So the distortion actually played in my favor, and I couldn't have asked for a better shot, to be honest with you. And I absolutely loved it. The only problem here was that the winds were sustained at about 15 to 20 miles an hour. So wow. All of my shots were shaky, and I had to go home and I had to actually use a stabilization tool. I used the Topaz sharpen tool that has the stabilizer in it, and I was able to stabilize the shot. But I had to shoot through a fence, and I had to shoot in high winds. And to be honest with you, if this shot was taken in the middle of the night, I would not have gotten the shot because it would have been too dark.
I mean, I think this is one of my favorite shots of the moon that you have. It's amazing. What focal length did you use? Could you go deeper a little bit with this one? Explain maybe the focal length or how you took it in terms of settings.
I was at 1,000 millimeter on my crop D500. So I'm not sure, is that effective 1,500?
Yeah,
I think so, right?
Probably, yeah. Multiplying,
Extended, and I was actually shooting over a restricted area in Brooklyn. So I was standing there like 5 in the morning, I don't know, 5:30 in the morning, right before sunrise, shooting a long lens into a restricted area. It was like part of the Coast Guard. And it was extremely cold and it was extremely windy. So I was dealing with the cold and the wind, and I was worried the cops were going to show up. They asked me why I was shooting this long lens into a restricted area. Let me tell you something. I was so nervous getting the shot that as soon as the moon crossed the statue, I was out of there. I didn't even take the lens off the tripod. I ran to my car. It took off. I was so nervous.
That's an adventure. But in that image, did you focus on the Statue of Liberty? Do you usually focus on your subject or on the moon?
I was focused on the Statue of Liberty.
The statue, okay.
To me, I always tell people this. I tell them that your subject is the star and the moon is a prop. You always have to make sure that you have a very sharp focus on what you're shooting. So in this case, I wanted the face of Statue of Liberty, and I wanted the Statue of Liberty in focus. And then I really didn't care how the moon looked behind her. Now, you do have if you want to talk about the 500 rule, the 500 rule actually applies to these shots, meaning that if you're shooting at 1,000 millimeter, actually, if you shoot at a second, the moon is going to have a trail, meaning that you're not going to freeze the details of the moon at a second when you're shooting at 1,000 millimeter. So at this case, if I'm shooting at 1,000 millimeter, I probably wouldn't go slower than a quarter of a second. But in this case, it was so windy. I think I was like at 1/20th of a second. But because it was getting brighter out, I think I was even at ISO maybe 400, 800 at 1/20th of a second. So I was actually shooting fast. But there was a lot of distortion in the moon, so I wasn't able to get any detail on the moon. But that's okay. I wanted to show this crazy-looking moon behind her, and that's what I got. So
amazing shot. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome. There's a couple more. So this is the moon behind the Manhattan Bridge in New York City, and I was actually standing in New Jersey when I got the shot. I don't know how many miles it is to the bridge. The bridge is actually kind of short, so when you're dealing with a short subject, if you place yourself at a great distance from your subject and it's kind of short, that moon is going to look huge compared to your subject when you're standing far away, as I told you before. So it almost looks like this moon is actually overtaking the bridge, but really it's not. I'm just placing myself with a lot of distance between me and the bridge. I love this shot because it looks like there's people standing here in the moon. Another one where you have to plan so that the moon is actually rising up well before sunset. And actually the sun was setting when I took the shot, and I wanted to make sure that you could see the people. So in this case, if you're trying to execute a shot like this, then use your PhotoPills, and you want to make sure that you get it before sunset. This is the eclipse that happened last year, and I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a polar vortex. So we were standing in. I had a group with me, and it was like 0 degrees. And I didn't think anybody that came was going to ever forgive me for that, because they still talk about it. You know, Jen, when you brought us out there, it was like 0 degrees and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, just shush. You got the shot. So this one was a very difficult shot to execute, because I actually wanted to show sunrise over New York with the moon. So I actually stood behind the teardrop. This is the Teardrop Memorial in Jersey City. So what I did was I plotted the azimuth of the moon so that I knew that the moon was actually going to appear next to this teardrop at the time of sunrise. So I needed to know the time of sunrise, and then I needed to know the time that the moon was going to cross at that particular azimuth in order to get them both in the same shot.
Wow. Well planned.
Well, we have PhotoPills for that, right? I'm just going to breeze through these. These are kind of repetitive. That was, you know, plot on the torch. This is another one where the moon was, I was 25 miles away. This is almost immediately after rise. This is probably 1 minute after rise. So again, I'm showing that big sense of destruction of this gigantic moon next to the World Trade Center. I actually just took this probably about 2 weeks ago in the middle of the night. And I was kind of nervous because I actually snuck into this park in the middle of the night. But you know, when you're dealing with an alignment like this, it only happens a couple of times a year. So, you know,
it's so cool because you guys, you see, you don't need to wait for the full moon. You can photograph all kinds of moons.
Exactly. And again, here, I just love this one because this is a crescent moon setting behind the Statue of Liberty. And I kind of loved how the people look like they're watching this gigantic moon, but really they're not. They're pretty far away from it. But through lens compression, it looked like these people were standing next to this gigantic moon. So again, this is kind of where that imagination comes into play.
Definitely.
Thank you. And this one was, the moon was actually eclipsing while it was setting behind the Statue of Liberty. This happened about 2 years ago. So I had to know the time that the moon was going to eclipse, and I had to know where to stand to get the moon setting behind the Statue of Liberty. I wanted to show the moon eclipsing underneath the armpit of the Statue of Liberty. So again, that crazy sense of imagination that I have, I wanted to show when the Statue of Liberty is holding their arm up, I wanted to show the moon kind of disappearing under it. And this took a tremendous amount of planning to make sure that I can execute this shot. So I had to know the times of the eclipse, and then I had to know the azimuth of where the moon would be next to the statue when I got the shot. And again, shooting over a restricted area. I was in Brooklyn, worried about the cops, high winds, you know, you name it. The only good thing is I didn't get clouds. I would have been devastated if I got clouds. I can deal with the cops. I can deal with the cold and the wind. So you can't deal with clouds, though. We can't do anything about that. This is another one where the crescent moon was aligned with the World Trade Center from that great distance, 25 miles away. I wanted to show a crescent moon kind of almost kissing the World Trade Center. Yeah. So when I had planned this shot, I actually drew it on a piece of paper and tried to figure out what I wanted to show. So I wanted to show them next to one another. So I waited for the moon to kind of cross, and this is the shot that I wanted. So they're kind of standing side by side.
Wow, it's so cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Moon set over the statue. I'll just breeze through these. Another moon rise on the World Trade Center. Huh?
I love this one too. I mean, I think I love all your photos.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I took this probably about a month ago. I didn't get the alignment, but this is one of those where I wanted to show this gigantic moon seem almost overtaking the city. So this is another one where I wanted to show a red moon trying to overtake the city. It kind of looks like a bowling ball about to knock the buildings over. Thank you. And this is the last one I wanted to show. You've got the moon behind the Empire State Building, and then this really awesome cloud layer just right there. So I thought that was really awesome. Okay, so I'm done showing my work. Do I have any questions?
Yeah. Well, we have a few questions actually. For example, Daniel Jones, do you process the moons to be red orange, or are all these moons just red orange?
I don't add any color to them. This is I tend to process all my shots very naturally how they were. The moon is actually bright red when it's coming over the horizon. Then it changes to orange, then yellow, then white. So I've had people actually tell me, why was the moon red if I looked up tonight and it was white? Well, it's white when you're looking up at it, but it's actually red at the horizon. So I don't change the color of the moon at all. I leave it as is. Yeah,
maybe do you play with the white balance of the whole image, Aviv, to adjust the real color? Do you shoot like in auto or manual white balance?
I shoot in manual white balance. I actually, during blue hour, I tend to up the color temperature. And at night, I shoot at a lower color temperature. So I'll shoot like maybe 35, 37 at night. Because the city actually, the lights of the city look terrible when you're shooting at a very hot white balance. So what I do is I cool it down in camera so that my lights are actually white and they're not emitting this gross yellow. So if you want to know, I always shoot in manual white balance.
Perfecto. Let me see. Doug is asking, Jennifer, what are your go-to settings on your camera? Shutter speed, ISO of the moon, for the moon itself. I think you've already answered it with your examples, but do you want to go over it quickly?
I'm actually going to get to that.
So, afterwards, after the planning.
We're going to go over planning, and then we're going to talk about how I shoot it.
Perfect. So let's go for planning then. But actually, we have a question here from Janet. Are your workshops only in New York?
They're for the moon. They're in New York, the New Jersey skyline in New York City, and I also shoot at the Jersey Shore. I shoot a bunch of lighthouses at the Jersey Shore, and the Great Beds Lighthouse, the Barnegat Lighthouse. We shoot a lot from New Jersey, and then we shoot moonset from New York City.
Cool. And then we have Becky. Becky is asking, what do you meter on, the subject or the moon?
I don't meter my shots. What I do,
because it's manual, right? You're shooting manual.
Yeah, I'm shooting purely manual. Yeah.
No,
you can't meter though, especially at night. You can't, because you can't really trust your camera. Trust yourself.
That's interesting.
Especially when you're shooting a moonrise and the moon is getting brighter and brighter, you have to make sure that you don't blow out the moon. That's so important. You have to make sure that your moon is well exposed. Otherwise, you cannot recover those details later. So when I shoot at night, I'm always underexposing my shot in order to preserve my moon details. That's so important, because you can work on your subject, especially if it's New York City and it's lit. You can work on it in post. You cannot recover the details of your moon. If you're shooting and your moon is a white disk, then you've definitely overexposed it. So no, please turn your metering off when you're taking these shots and shoot only in manual.
Great, thank you. And then we have another question that opens the planning section from Donald Feltham. Do you have a set of locations to try to plan your shots from?
What I do is before I started a lot of my workshops, I actually spent a tremendous amount of time scouting locations. I've actually spent hours and hours driving all over New Jersey, New York City, looking for openings. And that's rapidly changing. The view of the Empire State Building is actually rapidly changing because of Hudson Yards. There's a lot of spots that I used to go to that are not blocked. So I'm actually constantly rechecking locations and scouting new ones. So, definitely if you're in another city, I recommend driving around, scouting locations, make sure you have a view, once you have a view, then that's a huge thing when you're doing this planning, because you cannot sit there and plot your shot unless you know you have a view from where you're plotting it from. And people are always asking me if I have a view from here and there. I definitely respond and let them know, but you really got to do the research yourself and make sure that you do the research and know if you have a view or not.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so you want to go to the planning now?
Planning time?
Okay. All right. Then. So we're going to talk about planning the shot with PhotoPills. We're not going to actually talk about this one. We're going to talk about this one. Okay. This is actually the hardest shot I've ever executed and pulled off. And I could not have pulled the shot off if it wasn't for PhotoPills. There's absolutely no way. I wanted an extremely thin crescent moon sitting right on the spire of the Statue of Liberty. And this was during blue hour, and the moon was so dim I couldn't even see it in the sky. I had to trust the map and trust I was standing in the right place in order to pull the shot off. So I knew in my head that I wanted this very thin moon kind of sitting on the spoke. So I had to sit down and really plan it and make sure that I got the shot. So thank you for PhotoPills for that happened. Otherwise, it would not have happened.
Awesome. So the moon is this thin line here that you have on top of the Statue of Liberty, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And you see here, you see how it's resting right there. That's what I wanted to show.
Yeah. And this moon was not visible at the naked eye. So what a challenge.
It was a huge challenge. And you know what? I thought I was going to be able to see it. And I got there and I didn't see it in the sky and I kind of freaked out. And, it's like 6 a.m. and I was really, really tired. I had gotten up super early to drive to the location and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't see it. And then bam, there it was. Wow. And I kept second guessing myself, moving from left to right. And I said, you know what? Let me just stay where PhotoPills told me to stand. And it was correct. So I'm gonna actually using this as an example to show you how I pulled the shot off. Okay. So here's the zoomed up part. You can see that very thin crescent kind of sitting right there Okay.
Cool.
Okay. So I hope you PhotoPillers have your PhotoPills out and you can follow along here. I usually when I actually teach this, I share my phone, but I'm not going to do that today because I have the screenshots. So if you open up your PhotoPills app, go to Planner. Okay. So you go to Pills and you go to Planner. Mm-hmm. So you click on Planner. Okay. And then what you have to do is once you click on Planner, you have to drop the red pin where you have your view. So I know that I have a view from here, right? So this is Liberty State Park. I know that I have a view of the Statue of Liberty from here. Mm-hmm. What I did was I actually drove around and know that I have a view from all of these locations. And that's what you have to do is do your research. So I knew that I had a view from here of the Statue of Liberty. So that was the first step. Okay. All right. And then, oh, by the way, this example is from January 4th, 2019. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what you do is the first thing you do is drop the red pin and then you go into your layers here. Okay. You click on your layers, right? And then make sure that you have the moon enabled by double clicking this eye. I usually have the sun and the moon enabled because I also like to shoot sunrise when I'm out there. So I have this both enabled. Okay. All right.
Perfecto.
And then once you have the sun and moon enabled, you can actually see the sun and the moonrise lines here. This is a poor example, but the thick teal line is actually the line where the moon is rising. And then the thin blue line is actually where the moon is relevant to the timeline here at the bottom. So if you move your timeline to the left or the right, actually this teal line moves as long as you're moving it after rise. Okay. Now you have the navy line is moonset, and then that orange line is sunset. But we're just talking about the moon right now. Okay. So then once you drop the pin, I go to find, which is down here, and this is how I use the plan. So I click that, and then I click on moon at azimuth and elevation. So what is azimuth? Azimuth is where the moon is in the sky relative to due north. And the azimuth of the moon changes every day. So people ask me, Jen, where were you last night when you took that moonshot? And I'll look at them and say, well, one, I think you need to do the research. Okay. And number two, what does it matter where I was last night? You want to go tonight. It does not matter where I was last night because the moon's azimuth changes every day. So especially with that 25-mile out shot, I might have gotten it last night, but I might have to wait 6 months to get it again because that azimuth, your azimuth is changing every day. The elevation of the moon is actually the elevation of the moon after rise or before set. So you have to kind of correlate azimuth and elevation when you're getting these shots. Okay. So I click on move it azimuth and elevation, and I don't use this view. I go straight to numeric that's down here. Okay. So once you get this screen, go down to numeric. This is my method. Okay. And then you have to mathematically calculate you have to actually mathematically calculate the height of where you want the moon to be over your subject. So what I do is I usually put a date range up top. So you can actually select a long date range here. And then what you want to do is you want to enter in the height of of the crown of the Statue of Liberty in this case. So actually the height of the crown of the Statue of Liberty is 265 feet. So this is like the upper part of the crown. So what I did was I put in 265 feet so that I kind of knew that I could try to land that crescent moon right over the top of the crown like I did. Okay. So what you do is once you put in the height, okay, you select your date range, you click this little search tool up here. Okay. All right. Actually, it's a little bit out of thing. Okay. So once I click that that little search bar at the top, you can see here the very first one is 1419. That's actually the one that I did. So if you actually click on this, you'll actually be able to see the plan. So this tells me that where I'm standing at 6:37 a.m., I'm going to get that crescent moon. And you see here, if you go back, you can see the, let me go back to actually the moonrise time was actually at 6 o'clock a.m.
Yeah.
Okay? And what PhotoPills told me was that where I'm standing is actually going to cross at 6:37. So it actually took 37 minutes for the moon to rise and cross the Statue of Liberty from where I was standing. Now, this is what you have to understand when you're trying to learn how to use this tool, is that you have to understand your distance between yourself and your subject, okay? Once you understand how distance plays a role, you'll have a better understanding about ballpark, how long it takes the moon to cross your subject. If I were to move a mile back from where I was, the moon will probably cross between 10 and 12 minutes instead of 37 minutes. Yeah. Even when I'm shooting moonset, I shoot a lot from Battery Park. Moonset from Battery Park to Statue of Liberty, it's quite a distance. So you got 10 minutes and that's it. But if you're standing at Liberty State Park and you're really close to the statue is big relative to you because you're close to it, and the moon is smaller. So I want you guys to use this app and try to get an understanding of distance, how big your subject is relative to you, and then go from there. So it takes a lot of practice, but with enough practice, you can practically have a lot of this stuff in your head. Okay, it's like 35, 37 minutes. I need to drop my pin close to the statue, but leave enough time so that the moon has time to rise. So I have all these times kind of in my head. Okay. Yeah. So that's about it. So there it is. I use the app and look.
Yeah, and you guys, thank you, Jennifer. You guys, if you want to learn how to plan the moon in detail, you can watch. We have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, and as Jennifer has taught us, you can use two methods. One, when you know the date, the date of the full moon, and you want to plan it, or how Jennifer has explained us today is you can use the find option when you know the shooting spot, but you don't know when the photo you want happens. And the find option will guide you to get the exact date and time that photo happens. And if the photo is impossible, then you can make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any questions regarding the planning part?
Questions on planning at the moment. We had a question before. Let me see. I see from. Yeah, from. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Hey, Housley. You mentioned negative moon angle before. When is the moon when it's zero angle? I mean, is that the moon middle or the bottom, just on the horizon? Suppose people doesn't understand, negative angles because the Earth is curved, and when the moon is rising, is just if you're super far away, you can really see the moon rising at a negative altitude.
Right. Yeah, because I mean that's particularly into play when when you're standing at a higher elevation, like I was.
Yeah.
So I didn't kind of discuss this part, but I have several clients who get confused by this. So my shooting spot for getting the moon over the city from 25 miles away is actually like 550 feet up. It's on a cliff. So you have to subtract your height where you are from what you're shooting. And the moon, because of the Empire State Building, I mean, that shot's 28 miles. You're actually getting the moon almost immediately as it's coming up over the horizon. You're actually standing up 550 feet. If you even put 0 feet in the calculator, right? If you're putting 0 feet in the calculator because you're 550 feet up, the moon is so big, it's actually immediately crossing your subject. So what you want to do is you even want to put like a negative altitude in there because you're getting the moon so quick after rise. It's like I said, it's not even completely risen up over the horizon. It's already done. Question.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have another question from Mike T. How can I see how big the moon will be?
I know that there's actually a calculator in PhotoPills to show you how big the moon is going to be. Raphael, if you can explain that. I know how big my moon is because I have it all in my head based on distance. But Raphael, you have actually a calculator in there, correct?
Yeah. On the planner, on the panel number 2, the black beam panel, there you'll find the moon size that you're getting depending on the shooting distance. And also there is if you activate the show moon size on the map, you'll be able to see the moon size on the map, so you can compare how big is the moon to your subject on the map. And I'm going to leave a few videos in the description of this class down below, so you can watch all our moon planning videos. And I mean, if you watch 2 or 3 of them, you'll master moon planning super fast.
Yeah. And also, I'm available. If anybody wants to contact me, I can explain all of this in a private session as well over Zoom. That's what the great thing about Zoom is, that I can meet anybody in the world if I want, that has Zoom. So I'll put my information at the end of this, and then they can also contact me if they need one-on-one help, and I'm glad to explain it all to them.
Perfect. Then we have another question from Joseph Pelicon. The way I understand this is that you can get a big moon with a big zoom if you are further away. How do you handle getting the big moon when you are close, so close to the Statue of Liberty? I think it's a matter of shooting distance, right? It's not about focal length.
Yeah, it's a combination of the two. So, for example, I'll show you one. This is at 1,000 millimeter on a crop D500. So this is effective 1500. I was able to zoom into the Statue of Liberty pretty well at that focal length, but I'm not going to get that gigantic moon next to the statue because I'm too close to it. Yeah.
So the focal length gives you tells you how big the moon will be compared to your framing, to the field of view, to your photo, and the shooting distance is giving you how big the moon will be compared to your subject, the Statue of Liberty in this case. Is that right?
Right, because I mean, if I'm just going to show you a quick example. So this one was actually taken a mile back from where the other one I just showed you was. Do you see the difference here? So I'm at 1,000 millimeter on a crop D500, but the difference here is that I've moved a mile back. So now my statue is small. The moon's always the same size. I can only increase the size of the moon by moving back from my subject, and that's it. You're not going to get it any other way. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Another question from Doug Blunt. Jennifer, do you use any special weather apps to determine how likelihood of clouds obscuring your view?
I'm, you know, I try the Wonderground and weather.com and there's a whole bunch of cloud. You want to know something? I mean, they're almost always wrong. You know, and sometimes we have a clearing where it says it's only be like 10% clouds, and you get there and it's just like this layer of cloud like right over the subject. It's, you know, unless it's overcast, completely overcast, I always go and try because I mean, I can recommend them, but it's driving me crazy, especially when people, they don't want to come to a workshop because I see a week out that it's going to be cloudy.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't trust the weather apps very much. I mean, you know, like I said last night, we would have gotten the shot if we didn't have that thin layer of clouds. So
yeah,
you can use them, but unless it's completely overcast and raining, you really should go out and try to get the shot because you just never know.
Yeah, definitely. You have you only have like 12, 24 moons every year, so it's better to give it a try. We always go and give it a try, unless, as you said, it's completely overcast and raining.
Right. Yeah, you know, the same way. And I think I have to say one thing to the audience, that I don't think I would have my body of work that I would if the weather scared me away the whole time. So, you know, especially cold. You know, there's a lot of instances where I've shot in extreme cold and the cold doesn't scare me either. You really have to suffer a little bit too in order to get the shot. So you really have to keep trying, and a little bit of suffering never hurt anybody. Okay.
Perfecto.
Okay.
Great.
So we'll talk about the shooting part now.
Yeah, I think it's gear time, right?
Yep, gear time. So I'm a Nikon shooter. So my main camera for getting my shots is my Nikon D500. I love the camera. The color is great and it's super fast. So I absolutely love the camera. Also, I shoot with a Nikon D850 in DX mode. So you can actually put your Nikon D850 in DX mode and get almost the same result as you would from a Nikon D500. So I actually had somebody join my workshop and she wanted to rent a D500 and she had a D850, and I told her, no, just go into DX mode. It's pretty much the same thing. I shoot with a Nikon a 200 to 500 millimeter lens with the 2x extender. I sometimes use my extender and sometimes I don't. I did not use my extender last night because of the wind. When I have the extender on, 2x extender, and I'm shooting into wind, it cuts down my light too much. I was at f11, and at f11 I was almost at ISO 4000 because of the wind. I had to be at like, I think 1/15th or 1/20th of a second to compensate for the wind. So there are definitely cases where my extender is great and other cases where I absolutely can't use it. So sometimes I'm forced to crop when I can't put my extender on. Also, I use a PhotoPro Global Elite Tripod 84C. It's a very big tripod. It's very stable. You have to get a stable tripod when you're doing this. I do not understand why somebody would invest so much money in gear with a long lens and show up with this teeny tiny little tripod that will tip over if you just touch it. You definitely need a stable tripod for shooting the moon. Even if you don't want to carry it, get a heavy tripod just for moon shooting and use a travel one for everything else. It's so important to have a stable tripod. Extremely important. I use a cheap little wired remote, and what I do is I lock it on continuous mode. The wireless ones to me just never work right. And I find that my cheap little remote is fantastic. I think it's like $5.99. And I have a whole bunch of them, so they're really good.
I think you have your camera there, right?
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I can't really see. Can you see my?
Yeah. Now I see you perfectly.
Okay, so here's my setup. Here's my lens. I have kind of a cheaper lens. I really haven't been able to justify spending like 10 grand on a lens. I want one really badly, but this seems to function okay.
Yeah.
The only problem with this lens, of course, is that, dealing with low light situation. But other than that, it's been fine. I've got my teleconverter on here, and I've got my D500 on there. Okay.
That's cool. That's cool.
Okay. All right.
Do you notice any lose of sharpness when you're using the extender, like a teleconverter?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes I do, especially with the night shots. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of cheap when it comes to my gear. I'm kind of rough on my gear too, so maybe I should get a better extender. I mean, it's kind of the older one. I do notice a little bit of difference in the sharpness, but I'm also can sharpen the pictures when I'm done shooting. So, but yeah, I do notice that.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's get to the shooting part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shooting.
Yes. Okay, so let me just turn my camera around. Can you see the back of my camera?
Yeah, let me change. Not really. I think you need to turn it a little bit more, or maybe take the camera and
take the camera off. Yeah. Okay.
And
camera off.
Approach it to the webcam.
Yep. Okay.
I know it's heavy.
It is. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Get it closer.
You see it now?
Come on, yes, more or less.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
This is my poor D500. I say poor because I'm so rough on it, but it's like a workhorse. I love it. Okay, so what I do is when I'm shooting, I put the camera in manual, okay, and manual focus, and I turn the lens stabilization off. So I always make sure that I have my lens stabilization off. That's a killer. I have people that come to my class, I forget to check the lens stabilization, and then they go, why is my image blurry as soon as I take it? Their lens stabilization is on. I always make sure that's off. What I do is, if you can see here, I put the shot, I have manual focus, so I spend a lot of time manually focusing on my subject.
Okay.
And if you use this, back display here, I use my LCD display all the time. I do not focus by the viewfinder. So what I do is I magnify and I make sure that I have a manual focus. And I spend a lot of time focusing my shot. Okay. All right. So then what I do is a typical setting you have to shoot less than a second. And as I said before, you should not be shooting more than a half a second if you're at a 500 millimeter or longer. So that's kind of plays along with the 500 rule. If you're shooting wider, say at 300, I think you can get away with 1 second. But I recommend that if you're shooting 500 millimeter or longer, you shouldn't shoot slower than a half a second. I'm at 1,000 millimeters sometimes, so my baseline is probably a third or quarter. You tend, because of the 500 rule, you actually tend to get trailing of your moon if you shoot slow. And you actually get a sharper moon if you're actually shoot it faster at the longer focal length. And this is the same thing when you're shooting stars. You cannot shoot stars for a longer period of time because you also get trailing. So you have to really be cognizant of how long of a lens you have and how fast you're shooting. So again, I don't really have this problem very much because of the wind situation in New York. I'm almost always shooting a lot faster than a second anyway. But just make sure that you're shooting your moon pretty fast. Otherwise, you're going to get trailing of the moon and you're not going to get a sharp moon. Yeah. Sometimes I don't think it's really important because I'm always want to make sure that my subject is in focus. But if you want a sharp moon and you want to get some of those moon details, then definitely you want to shoot it faster. So your settings at night are different than blue hour because actually blue hour you can get away with ISO 100. You can. What I do is I shoot it at ISO 100 during blue hour, and I'm usually shooting it at f8 if I don't have my extender on. If I have my extender on, I'm limited to f11 because of a 2x extender. The only thing I might do is I actually might invest in getting a 1.4x extender because I don't lose as much light. That's definitely the next thing I'm going to purchase. So I noticed that sometimes when I'm shooting at night, I'm at a very high ISO. So I can be at like ISO even 4,000 or 5,000 if I'm shooting something very dim. So it really depends on, it really depends on if your subject is lit or not. Again, please do not try to attempt shooting a dark subject in the middle of the night because that moon's going to be so bright next to your subject that you're not going to be able to shoot your subject at all. Use your PhotoPills and make sure that you actually get a blue hour shot rather than a night shot if you can avoid it.
That's cool. Unless you want to photograph a silhouette of your subject, that could be another option.
That's true. I've noticed some amazing shots that you featured on PhotoPills that are a silhouette. I'm amazed. That is something that's very difficult to do here in New York. The only thing that I'm able to do is get a silhouette of the edge. But it's very hard to find an open field where people are standing on a hill. And I think in other countries maybe it's easier, but here it's so congested it's hard to get that. But if it's a silhouette, then that's fine. Definitely,
you're lucky to live in New York because there city lights help you get the subject right. But yeah, you want to get the silhouette, you need to go in the field and find a dark location without artificial light, so you can capture that silhouette. So to get the exposure right, the mandatory camera settings is the shutter speed. So the moon is like not trailing. And then you play with the aperture, of course, and then the ISO, you push it up in case you need it to get the exposure right.
Yeah, but I think one thing everyone has to understand is that if you're shooting at night and you're shooting close to your subject, the moon takes a long time to reach the subject. It gains light as it's rising. So it's perfect at the horizon, but you're only going to get the moon at the horizon if you're far away from your subject. So if the moon is really high in the sky, that moon is extremely bright, and it's hard to land, a well-exposed shot if your moon is so bright. You have to really stop down and shoot fast in order to preserve your moon details, and then you have a really dark subject. So it's really, what I tell people is this: if you're shooting at night, open your aperture as much as you can. You're governed by your speed and you're governed by the wind. If it's windy and you have a long lens on, you're at like 15th of a second to like 1/20th of a second or even faster. Then you're forced to push up your ISO really high. So you really have to compensate for that.
Okay. And you usually, as you said during the class, you always focus on your subject, right?
Yes, I do not focus on the moon. I always focus on my subject. And, by shooting fast enough, you can get preserved moon details. Now, if you're just concerned with the moon and you don't care about your subject, then point your camera at the sky and shoot the moon. There you go. Okay. Yeah,
we usually use also we calculate the hyperfocal distance depending on for moon photography, we try to close the aperture to maximize depth of field to get the image as sharp as possible, and to get the hyperfocal closest. The closer the better. Yeah. But the hyperfocal distance gives us at least a focus distance to help us with the focusing. If the subject falls behind this hyperfocal distance, we focus always at the subject. And if it falls, if the subject falls in front of the hyperfocal distance, then we focus at the hyperfocal or we focus at the subject. We try to close the aperture a bit to maximize it. So I think the right way to go, or one of the best options you can do, is to focus on your subject so you get it crispy and sharp in your image, because it's the main character, right?
It is. It's a star. Your subject is your star always. And you can do your best getting the moon sharp, but when you're dealing with distortion at the horizon, it's not going to be extremely sharp. Sometimes I look at these images and I go, how do you have so much tremendous detail of this huge moon at the horizon? And I'm thinking that's not possible. This is not possible. you see this gigantic moon that looks like a moon high in the sky,
Yeah,
dropped right at the horizon behind a building. It's just
not possible.
No, it's not.
That's a composite.
Of course, yes, it's composite.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's about it for me. You know, we can take Q&A, and then you know, have a bunch of workshops planned. So I can just leave this open, and then we can talk about, you know, if you guys have any more questions regarding that, you can contact me. You can visit my workshop, khordiphotography.com. I don't have these up on my workshop, up on my website yet. I have to add them, but you can always email me if you're interested in attending any of these, and then I can add you to the roster.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I can say I've been in one of your workshops. Actually, we did one last year, I think, before the COVID thing in New York, and it was so fun to chase and photograph the full moon with the Empire States. In that case, it was so much fun.
Oh, it was great. I mean, I had a lot of people, but we managed to get them all.
Yeah.
So cool, right?
Yeah, crazy. We have a few questions, if you don't mind answering them. Yeah, we had Donald Feltham. Why do you shoot in DX mode? Is there a degradation of image quality versus full frame?
No, not that I've seen. I mean, if I am using my D850 and in place of my D500, I put it in a DX mode and it becomes a crop sensor camera. So I like to have more reach. I'm an in-camera shooter, and I know people who know me. I don't have hours to spend editing my shots. I'm very busy, and a lot of people don't have time to sit behind a computer and edit shots for 3 hours. I tend to you know, land a lot of my shots in camera. So I put it in DX mode, and there you have it. So yes, I don't see any degradation in quality from shooting in DX mode. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
And then we have Mike T, who is super interested in the settings you're using. So could you show us all of the settings of one of your photos just to see an example? I don't know if you can share that of one of the photos you've commented today.
Sure.
Awesome.
Hold on, let me think.
The one that you remember.
Yeah, hold on. Let me remember.
If you want, you can also open a photo in a Lightroom and check them. We have.
Actually, that is a great idea.
We have time.
Okay, great.
I just change the view here.
Okay. Let me find it real quick. Okay, let me just pull up Lightroom. Was this working on that presentation?
Yes. Yeah, we see Lightroom now.
Great.
Now there is no photo there. Yeah, here it is.
Okay. So
yeah, you can maximize the Lightroom screen if you want, like with the green button.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's look at this. So this is 640. Actually, this is 550 millimeter on my crop. So actually, this was not taken at 1,000 millimeter. I had my extender on, and because of the wind, I had to take it off. Okay. Now, mind you, the wind was so bad, it literally almost knocked me over. Okay. Oh my God. It was so bad. So what I did was I had my extender on. It was at f11. I said, okay, forget this. So what I did was I removed the extender, and then I was at f6.3, which is much better than f11. And then I'm at 1/160th of a second. Okay. And there's the only way that I would have done that is because of the wind. I think that I tried to shoot it slower than that, and it just didn't work. And I knew that I would rather have a grainy picture than a shaky picture, and it was still shaky, and I had to still fix it. So this is a perfect example of being able to think on the fly. You know what? I'm not looking at my camera. I just know that I have to think quickly. Otherwise, I'm going to blow the shot and blow my opportunity to get it. So it's a perfect example of thinking on the fly and shooting fast. Okay. So let me just pull my Lightroom catalog down and we'll check another one. And it's a little slow because I'm sharing my screen. This one was ISO 400, 850 millimeter at f11 in 1/3 of a second. So in this case, I had to shoot at f11 because I had the extender on. Okay. Yep.
Okie dokie.
I think that's. I mean, I hope that answered all the questions. Let me see if I have any other. So this is a blue hour shot that I just took. So this is the Great Beds Lighthouse. So just to show an example of one with the blue hour.
Jennifer, I think in Lightroom, if you press the I key,
yeah,
the axis will appear on the image. Isn't it right? Is it right or?
Oh, really? Okay. Let me see. Is this Mac? The I
key.
Oh, there it is.
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra Vallare. She was telling me that.
Spot there.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah. You see, I have to clean my sensor. That's so embarrassing. Here I'm at f11, ISO 100, 800 millimeter at 1/25th of a second. So that's a luxury of shooting during blue hour that I was able to shoot at ISO 100, even at f11. So this one lens right here, 200 to 500 to 5.6, so 1/25th. Okay. Now, if this were at night, like I said, I went there last night and my settings were completely different. I think I was at ISO 3200 at, I think, 1/15th of a second because it was windy. I was at f11 and then I had to turn my take my extender off. But you can see the difference here in the settings. Shooting at night than blue hour. Okay.
Nice, nice.
Yep. So that's I gave you an example at night in blue hour, but the wind is a killer. I'm telling you. The wind
okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. We have one last question. You have a bit more time from Jochen Keller. Did you notice any difference in moon quality when it rises versus when it sets?
No.
No.
Oh, hold on, I'm trying to escape out of here. No, it's
I suppose it's all about the atmosphere, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no difference. Let me just pull this up again. There's really no difference in moonrise or set. The only difference to me when you're doing moonrise or set is that you have more time to correct yourself if you're watching a moon set than moonrise, because you're watching a moon setting in the sky, and if you're wrong, you have plenty of time to move. When your moon is rising, you have a lot less time. So I don't see any difference in quality. The only difference is that if you're a beginner, try to do moonset because you have more time to correct yourself and get the right exposure than if it's quickly just rising and you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, definitely. And this works also for the planning. I mean, when you see the moon going down, it's much easier to adjust your shooting spot because you're seeing the moon. When you're planning a moonrise, you get super nervous because you don't know if you're at the right place until you see the moon appear above the horizon, which is so exciting.
Yeah, and also with the planning part. So I showed a rise, so it just works backward for set. So you have your set time, and you have to figure out what the time is before set to land your moonshot. You have to work backward. Okay. So your set line is to the right of your subject, and your rise line is to the left.
Yeah.
When you're using the planner, when you're looking at your moon, like when you're looking at your setting moon, your navy line is your moon set. You have to make sure that line's to the right of your subject, and you have to make sure there's enough time. But again, you have plenty of time to correct yourself. Like I said, it's so easy to shoot moonset when you have tons of time. You can see if you're in the right place. You can move if you want to. It's actually better, like I said, if you're just starting.
Yeah, definitely. And to reinforce a key concept of moon photography, I mean, the importance of the shooting spot and the shooting distance to get the moon size you want compared to your subject, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the main mistakes. The shooting distance really affects how big the moon will be compared to your subject, and the focal length will affect the size of the moon compared to the frame of the photo. So Jennifer,
yes,
any last words you want to share? Workshops, where to find you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you can also follow me on Instagram, Khordi. And if you're interested in any of these workshops, you can also DM me on Instagram. You could friend me on Facebook, Jennifer Khordi, or send me a contact form on khordiphotography.com, or send me an email if you want to attend, and I'll add to the roster. All of these workshops include a free follow-up Zoom class after the workshop. So what we do is we go and shoot, and then a day later, or a couple days later, we meet over Zoom. I go over how I plotted the shot, and I go over some processing tips. So that's all included in the tuition.
Nice.
So I try to include as much as I possibly can in the workshop fee, and I hope that everyone gets a lot out of it. Also, if you go to the workshop and we get clouded out, you can come back and get a free workshop. You know, like I said, I'm not Mother Nature. I have no control over that. I wish I could just blow the clouds away, but that never happens.
Nice. So, guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much, Jennifer, for sharing all your knowledge with the PhotoPills tribe, the PhotoPills community.
Yeah,
and guys, as always, thanks so much for watching. And remember that you have the power to imagine, plan, and shoot legendary photos. See you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye, thank you.